Coming up in this episode of Southern Newsweek, Central Otago's wine harvest begins 3 weeks earlier than normal. The Dunedin Botanic Garden is once again awarded a 6-star rating. And former National Party leader Bill English enters a sheep shearing competition in Waimumu. Hello, I'm Melissa Barton and welcome to Southern Newsweek. Yesterday marked the start of Central Otago's wine harvest. The fact that the harvest is 3 weeks earlier than normal has winemakers feeling both excited and apprehensive. The South Today found out more.
This year sees the earliest harvest ever for Central Otago wines. The first grapes of any season are used for making sparkling wines, and Quartz Reef Winery is one of the few vineyards in the region that produces this type of wine. Vintner Rudy Bauer says there's never been a year like it, and he is a bit apprehensive about how this year's vintage will turn out.
The grapes, because they're ripe, they're extremely early. That's the earliest harvest we ever experienced within our short history of 31 years in our region. So we're all looking forward to an exciting harvest, and slightly, maybe a little bit nervous because we're not exactly sure what to expect.
This year's harvest of grapes, starting on 15 February, is 3 weeks ahead of normal and attributed to the extraordinary summer.
I guess the main reason is the extraordinary warm season. We had it, as you know, that extraordinarily beautiful summer, as they said, like in the old days. And what that really also takes it in is the importance that we are looking at very high quality grapes, which will result in high stunning wines.
According to Bauer, Cromwell only had 2 days in the whole of January with a high less than 30 degrees. Rudy Adrian, The South Today.
And continuing the topic of this year's wine harvest, grape pickers are in hot demand in Central Otago vineyards as harvest season looms. With the harvest season earlier than normal, Mina Amso reports the industry is getting desperate.
These grapes at Ceres Vineyard, 10 minutes out of Cromwell, will be ready for harvest in just a few weeks. But will enough workers be here to get them picked?
Where I used to get 50 workers, I'm now getting 30, so everyone in the region is starting to feel some pain, including me.
Viticulturist James Dicey of Cromwell says he has around 70 workers at the moment. Another 50 would bump the numbers significantly, but not enough to get him through harvest.
It's a hot, dry day here at Ceres Wines at the southern end of the Cromwell Basin. The grapes look nearly ripe, and pickers will be needed desperately for the harvest in 2 to 3 weeks.
The harvest season normally runs from the last week in March and finish at the first week in May. This year, though, it's 2 to 3 weeks early due to the long, hot summer the region is experiencing. Dicey says fully trained harvest workers from Marlborough typically arrive to his vineyard around this time, ready to go, but they are being held up due to harvest work over there. He's now having to get backpackers to do the job.
They need to be trained, and that takes time. I've got to get more gear done, I've got to get more contracts signed, I've got to train staff, I've got to induct them to health and safety.
Tractor driver Ross McFadden helps vineyard worker Charlie Lau pot up the nets. McFadden has been working at this vineyard for 20 years and says more workers would be good to have.
The actual vine work would be good. Well, like all the leaf thinning, or the bunch thinning and all that sort of stuff, and the wires, that'd be a big help.
While there's a shortage of grape pickers, Dicey says he's got a good crop and is quietly confident he's going to have a great vintage. Mina Amso, The South Today.
Inside Forsyth Bar Stadium on Monday night, 4,000 tertiary students listened to Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern, while outside 30 protested against the Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement. Roselle LeBone reports.
As 4,000 students were addressed by Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern inside Forsyth Bar Stadium last night, about 30 students protested. While they welcomed the government's free year of tertiary education, they stood firm on their distaste for Labor's backpedalling on the Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement. Here outside the Forsyth Bar Stadium, members of Dunedin's student TPPA protest group are making their feelings known before the arrival of Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern. And I've been told about half an hour ago several protesters were also on the scene at Dunedin South Labour Rooms.
In the end, it comes down to the fact that Labour is preaching false rhetoric. They have the tertiary free education generation up in front in the spotlights. And then in the shadows, they're signing the CPTPP and entrenching neoliberalism.
Ardern made an appearance as guest of honour at the annual convocation ceremony. Protesters shouted slogans at the passing cars of Ardern and her entourage, including Dunedin MP Claire Curran.
No way! TPPA! No way!
The South Today did manage to speak to University Proctor Dave Scott to gauge his feelings on the protest.
Under New Zealand law, everyone has the right to freedom of speech and freedom of peaceful protest, so this group feel passionate about their cause, so they're here to do that, and I'm just working with them so that they can get their message out in a lawful way.
A 6 p.m. ceremony to reopen Dunedin South Labour Rooms with the PM in attendance was also held while the protest was happening. Media was told to be seated inside Forsyth Bar by 6:30 p.m. for Ardern's 8:20 speech. Roselle LeBone, The South Today.
No way! TPPA! No way!
The Southern Field Days in Waimumu had one of their biggest years to date. Over 750 exhibitors displayed their agriculture-based products to tens of thousands of people. Sharon Rees has more.
It was another busy day for the Southern Field Days organisers in Waimumu today, with the car parks filling up by 10:30 a.m. and cars still filing through the gates.
Organisers told me today around 40,000 people have come through the gates, with yesterday one of their busiest days in the history of the event.
The last day of the Field Days saw a visit from the Minister of Agriculture, Damien O'Connor. He acknowledged the difficult times faced by Southland farmers affected by both drought conditions and the cow disease Mycoplasma bovis, and said the Field Days were the perfect opportunity for farmers to reach out.
They may not have the same money in their pocket to spend at some of the stalls, which is a bit of a disappointment for those who are exhibiting here, but to get out and talk with other farmers and people who are often sharing the same challenges is really, really important. And I guess this is it's an informal way of doing some of that social interaction. The Rural Support Trusts are trying to encourage that in areas where there is pressure from adverse events. They're trying to get out to people. This is a really informal and good way of doing it.
But it wasn't all business for O'Connor, who said he had no choice but to open his wallet at the event.
I've been told by my partner I have to buy something for her, and my daughter wants something for a pony, but I might run out of time, which might save me a bit of money.
There were plenty of crowd-pleasing events throughout the day, with a gumboot throwing competition putting a little extra cash in some young people's pockets. And the tractor pull, which saw some of the biggest crowds of the day, with everyone keen to see the heavy machinery in action. While organisers said they didn't know the precise number of people through the gates, they think it may be a record number. Sharon Rees, The South Today.
The New Zealand Gardens Trust has renewed the 6-star award for the Dunedin Botanic Garden. The award recognises gardens of international significance. The South Today took some time out to commune with nature.
Since 2010, the Dunedin Botanic Garden has been officially recognised as a garden of international significance. That award has now morphed into a 6-star garden. Team leader and curator Alan Matchett says the award has helped motivate the staff.
But it actually sets a standard, a level for us to achieve. And it might be a hard task to actually get it in the first place, but it's actually quite difficult to maintain that level of standard. And that's been the challenge and exciting part for us over the years.
The garden was established in 1863 as New Zealand's first botanic garden, and Matchett says it continues to cater to the wide range of interests for both locals and tourists alike.
Yeah, there's a very wide garden audience that visit the garden. They see different things, they come from different countries, so yes, it's exciting for them. It could be just chilling out in a beautiful environment, or looking at the blooms and appreciating the horticultural work that we do here.
He also points out that it isn't just the garden staff who have been involved in the winning of the award.
Obviously the effort here at the Botanic Garden isn't just Botanic Garden staff. We have a lot of contractors that have played an important part in making sure that things were fixed, painted and oiled, and particularly the timber work. So it's been an all-round effort, and it's been an amazing achievement, and there have been many people following us over the last 2 months to see how that assessment process ended up.
The only other public garden to have won the 6-star award is Atari Wilton's Bush in Wellington. Rudy Adrian, The South Today.
Retiring National Party leader Bill English was on centre stage at the Southern Field Days at Waimumu, just outside Gore. The race to fleece 1 sheep each was down to the last few blows.
Competitors set. Returning to his earlier style of manual labour. 29-year parliamentary veteran Bill English displays one of the farming skills he has that might be of value to a prospective employer once he leaves his job in politics at the end of the month.
Both around in the first front shoulder. Mr. English swings around the long blow. Jamie McCall, long blow time as well. This is going to be close, folks.
Bill English has made occasional cameo shearing appearances, and as Prime Minister a year ago, even claimed victory over shearing legend Sir David Fagan in a 1-sheep match. Today's fast shearing match was the final event of this year's 3-day Waimumu Field Days. Daryl Baser, The South Today.
Alas, former Prime Minister Bill English lost the competition. Still to come on Southern Newsweek, Dunedin celebrates the Chinese New Year with a street parade, and a Sri Lankan family are given a reprieve from deportation. Welcome back. Dunedin celebrated the Chinese New Year last Friday with festivities including a parade winding its way through the central city. The South Today joined the crowds to watch the procession.
Marching to a centuries-old beat, a golden dragon made its way from Dunedin's Octagon to the Chinese Garden on Friday. Many of those in the parade were dressed in traditional attire. Visiting Chinese Consul General Zhejiang Wang spoke of his admiration for the garden.
As Lanyuan is one of the largest Chinese gardens in the South Hemisphere, it is very special to celebrate Chinese traditional festivals here.
And the stage outside the Chinese Garden was used for all manner of traditional performances. Plus, some more modern styles of dance. In Chinese astrology, 2018 is an Earth Dog year, the last one having been in 1958, when entertainers Madonna and Michael Jackson both were born. People born in the year of the dog are said to be loyal, honest, amiable, kind, cautious and prudent. Six-year-old Chi Chung Lee led the crowd to sing in the Chinese Year of the Dog. As a substitute for fireworks, which were banned this year, illuminated smoke created a visual end to the celebrations. Rudy Adrian, The South Today.
The Invercargill City Library is playing Cupid this month to ignite a passion for books in Invercargill residents. The librarians hope to set every library goer on a blind date with the perfect book. Sharon Rees has more.
Valentine's Day may be done and dusted, but the Invercargill City Library is offering a love match of a different kind this month. Library books have been wrapped into parcels that include a vague description of the book in the style of newspaper dating advertisements to entice a potential reader.
The idea is that you have a date with a book, so you get a book that you don't know anything about and it's wrapped up in brown paper and you take it away and you read it and then you rate it, just like you would a date. And so you rate it whether you found it was really boring, don't ever want to see it again, or you loved it and you want to do it again.
And I couldn't look past an ad offering a cracking thriller where our very existence is at stake. So I guess I've got a date with Gillian Anderson's A Vision of Fire.
But if thrillers aren't your thing, Smith says the parcels contain books for every kind of reader.
We've got every kind of book. We also put some non-fiction in, we put some graphic novels in, so there's quite an opportunity to get something quite different that you've never had before, but you wouldn't get something that you're completely going to hate if you look at the ad.
Younger library goers also have a chance to participate, but in the style of a lucky dip. With much the same concept, children can pick up a new book based on its short description and join in on the thrill of a mystery. Once the books have been returned, readers are encouraged to fill out a form to rate their date, which will let the librarians know if it was love at first sight or a complete mismatch. The forms will be drawn next month, and one reader from each of the adults and children's sections will win a prize pack for dinner and a movie. Sharon Rees, The South Today.
The Queenstown-based Sri Lankan family, given a one-year reprieve from deportation, are thankful to be able to get back to work and normal life. Mina Amso spoke to the couple after they had received the news.
An emotional and overwhelmed Danisha Amarasinghe and husband Sam Vijayaratne at their one-bedroom cabin home. While trying to hold back the tears, they said they were relieved to have been given permission to stay in New Zealand for another year.
Everybody asking what is going on. Have you
what you need to do, because
you have enough food. They asking
because this is the hard time. Anyone like this situation, the emotional heart,
The family faced deportation after Danisha's application for a work visa renewal was declined due to her multiple sclerosis, a condition that costs about $2,500 a month to treat.
The government approved now 3 years for this special medicine.
The Immigration and Protection Tribunal yesterday granted the parents work visas and the children's student visas for 12 months based on humanitarian grounds, while their case for residency is being reviewed. The couple's 3 boys, Subat, nearly 13, Sanat, 9 and Binat, 10, are already back to school in Queenstown. Subat wants to play cricket for New Zealand one day. Sam says his boys are the reason he wants to stay in New Zealand.
They have a lot of future plans. My small son, he said he need to be a doctor, he need to look after me. And second son also, I asking him to be a pilot and go to the New Zealand Air Force.
While the family hopes to be granted permanent residency, Clutha Southland MP Hamish Walker, who fought with the family, says more work is needed.
Discussing their case over the next few days with the immigration lawyer, with the family, and then most likely write to the Associate Immigration Minister and asking for them to be given permanent residence.
The family can breathe easier now as they wait for their work visas to arrive and start work again. Mina Amso, The South Today.
The Ministry of Health is urging former sawmill workers to take up its offer of free health checks. The object is to find workers who are exposed to the hazardous substances such as pentachlorophenol, commonly known as PCP. Sharon Rees has more.
Among the stalls at the Southern Field Days in Waimumu last week was one set up by the Ministry of Health. Its purpose was to track down former sawmill workers. Sophie Bishop said she hoped to find workers who might have been exposed to hazardous substances, including pentachlorophenol, which is suspected of causing long-lasting health problems among those exposed to it.
We're trying to attract men who would potentially have been working in those sawmills, and we feel like this is the right place here at the Southern Field Days. There used to be quite a few sawmills around this area. The men are eligible to go along to their doctors each year for a free health checkup. And so it's really about engaging them in the health system. They're able to go and see their doctor, pick up any sort of diseases earlier on and work on having a really healthy lifestyle.
With Southland having a long history in the timber industry, Bishop said there would be a number of people who qualify for the service, but often the problem was getting them to the doctor in the first place.
Older men, they don't really see the point in going to a GP if they seem to be perfectly healthy. You don't really know that you have any major health problems until it can be further down the track where it is harder to treat something.
While symptoms may include skin and respiratory problems, anyone who worked in sawmills in Southland from the 1950s to the 80s are encouraged to get in touch with the ministry to see if they qualify for the service. The service includes a free annual health check and provides access to other health programs to maintain a healthy lifestyle. For more information, visit moh.govt.nz/dioxins. Sharon Rees, The South Today.
Coming up after the break, the Kingston Flyer stokes up its boilers for a short run down the tracks, and cyclists are treated to a free breakfast in Dunedin's Octagon. Thanks for staying with us. One of the two engines belonging to Central Otago's iconic steam train, the Kingston Flyer, was stoked up last Sunday. The event was in commemoration of two men who had been closely involved with the train. The South Today was at the ceremony.
AB795, better known as the Kingston Flyer, was fired up on Sunday as a tribute to Russell Glendinning and David Bryce, who had both been closely involved with the train. The two men passed away last year, and in Mr. Glendinning's case, ending an association with the Flyer that had spanned 40 years. After sitting almost derelict for several years, the Flyer was purchased by a Southland Lakes consortium, and it seems that the train will remain in Kingston. Restoration efforts began last June, and mechanically the engine is considered to be in a quite good state, but it did need some repairs. A crowd of over 1,000 people turned up for yesterday's ceremony, and some of Mr. Glendinning's ashes were placed in the engine's firebox, ready for when the engine cranks up again. Rudy Adrian, The South Today.
Spokes Dunedin hosted the 4th annual Go By Bike Day breakfast in the Octagon this week. The breakfast was free for anyone who arrived in the Octagon by bike.
Cyclone Gita sweeping by Dunedin did not deter about 50 cyclists from turning out for a bite of breakfast in the Octagon today to mark Go Bike Day.
We just at Otago Girls and we just rode down because we're doing a bike unit at school.
Looking forward to hot breakfast?
I tried to get fit and my friend and I were meeting each other, so we were committed. It was cold this morning, but we're here now.
Go Bike Day aims to raise awareness of cyclists, and Dunedin organiser Ilka Fedor says while there has been positive momentum on cycle lanes from the City Council, there's still more work to be done.
I guess it's not really about speed, it's about it being done in a safe way. Of course we'd like things to be done today, but the main thing is that it's done in a safe way and that cyclists are protected.
Some riders had travelled all the way from Canada and Korea for the event.
Hilly, very hilly, and somebody needs to talk to the planners who decided to build a street as a wall, but otherwise it's pretty good.
What's it like cycling in Dunedin streets compared to Korea?
It's less crowded, like much less cars, so it's much easier to bike once.
What do you think about the weather though?
It's worse in Korea, I think.
Despite the conditions, this rider was celebrating his 6th bike breakfast and clocking more than 1 million Ks. Participants were treated to a full breakfast and hot cup of tea or coffee, while the breakfast was also shared with those who might not get a meal otherwise. The event coincides with February's Aotearoa Bike Challenge, where workplaces across New Zealand challenge each other to see who can have the most employees cycling to work in the month of February. Roselle LeBone, The South Today.
Cyclone Gita made its impact felt across New Zealand during the middle of the week. The South Today was in Greymouth when the storm struck.
Warnings of strong winds came true for Greymouth yesterday as the town was lashed by Cyclone Gita. About 100 tourists were trapped overnight in South Westland despite warnings to stay away. The closure of State Highway 6 meant that 42 Chinese tourists were forced to spend a night sleeping in 2 buses at Whataroa, just south of Greymouth. Western Civil Defence expressed disappointment that tours were still operating despite warnings. Heavy rain caused flooding in Nelson, forcing over 130 people to spend the night in welfare centres. And floods also closed roads such as the Takaka Hill Road, the only road access to Golden Bay. The road was washed out in several places by huge slides of mud and trees, and it is expected to be several days before it can be reopened. Across the South Island, states of emergency were declared in the Nelson Tasman region, Selwyn District, Grey District, Buller and Westland. The rain is expected to ease from now on, and the absence of high tides has meant that some low-lying areas got off lighter than they might otherwise have. Rudy Adrian, The South Today.
That's all from us this week. You can go online and check us out on Facebook, or you can keep up with Southern News via our website, YouTube and channel39.co.nz. I'm Melissa Barton and thanks for watching.
Supporting local content so you can see more of New Zealand on air.